17th of October 2016 at 7 p.m. We have, I'll take attendance. Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Janik? Mr. Van Truen?
Here.
Mr. Vukovac?
Here.
Mr. Goodell? Mr. Winarski?
Here.
And the chair is present. We have letters on file from Mr. Janik, Mr. Goodell, and Mr. Ramsey requesting that they be excused. And I will entertain a motion to excuse them. Yes, Mr. Winarski.
So moved.
Mr. Miller. There's a motion and a second to excuse Mr. Janik, Mr. Winarski, and Mr. Ramsey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion is
I think
carried.
I'm here.
I'm sorry. Goodell and Van Truen. Okay, Goodell and Janik and Ramsey. Everybody understand that? Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, you can leave if you want.
Thanks. After, was I that bad last week?
No. All right, continuing on. All right. We have one item on the Finance Committee agenda, that's A16-47. Resolution accepting amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and approving the alternative method formula and allocation of the ULGF and ULGRAF and certifying them to the county. This was submitted by Mr. Auditor Kukuka. Would you care to speak on that?
Yeah, this is an annual resolution that we have to pass. Unfortunately, we didn't receive it until the information until September 30th, so I am asking that the emergency be put on it because it does have to be to the county by November 1st. Basically, all you're doing is approving the tax rate that we receive back based on our bond issues. And you can see those on page 2 of, actually page 3 of this submission for the fire bond issue and for the fire levy issue.
So it's to approve the tax rate
Right.
for the payment of the bond issues.
Right.
Mr. Bukovac.
I'd like to make a motion to amend A1647 to include the emergency clause.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to amend A16-47 to include the emergency clause. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried 5-0. Mr. Winarski.
I just got a quick question for Mr. Kukuka. I'm just going through this. I'm guessing this is that there are different tax levies, bond issues and such. Some are handled by the county versus handled internally. For example, I didn't see the street fund in here. That's handled internally, so it's not certified.
That's through the treasurer's.
Okay, and library handles their own, schools handle their own. This is just,
These are ones that we handle, the fire apparatus levies.
okay. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Absolutely, fire levy should be there and continue on. But besides that, I'd like to take A1647 to the floor with emergency, as amended with emergency.
Mr. Van Truen.
Second.
So motion and a second to take to the floor of council as amended with the emergency. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion is carried 5-0. Mr. Miller.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Lubeck.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. We are adjourned at 7:08.
Excuse him from your attendance.
Thank you. Call Streets Committee to order at 7:08. I'd like to note that the attendance from the previous Finance Committee is intact with one exception. Mrs. Hope.
Move to excuse Auditor Kakuka and delete.
Mr. Miller?
Second, please.
We have a motion to excuse Mr. Kukuka and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Kukuka is excused. We have one agenda item, A1648. An ordinance approving the developer's agreement with Micah Properties and Victor Nardini for road improvements to Kresge Drive. This is being submitted by the mayor. Mr. Mayor, would you like to comment, please?
Thank you. Century Plaza Phase 3 is the buildings going on over there off of Kresge Road in front of Aldi's. And during the Planning Commission meetings, there was discussion about the traffic impact of another development going into that area. And the traffic impact said there needed to be some improvements made with that stretch of road to accommodate the extra traffic that would be there. So everything was passed with contingency of the developer coming up with an agreement with the city to help the traffic impact. So that's what this agreement is. Negotiations went back and forth quite a bit. Of course, the city started way up here, and Mr. Nardini started way down here, and we really truly came to a very, very good middle grounds. And Mr. Nardini is willing, according to this agreement, partner with the city at an amount not to exceed $65,000 to widen that section of road in front of his development to 3 lanes. The total plan would be to get a traffic study to figure out how to stripe that section, how to re-signalize Route 58 and Kresge Road. But preliminary plans are showing about $130,000 project to widen that, to make a better traffic situation. So Mr. Arnetti's coming up with almost half of the money for that, but it could be less. So this is why it's worded up to $65,000 and half up to that amount. So this is just the financial agreement. This has nothing to do with the plans. Our engineers will be looking at the plans, and we hope to hit early next year's construction season. So this is only approving the agreement with Mr. Nardini and his company that will allow him to contribute that amount of money for improvements to that section of road. If you have any other questions, I'd answer them.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Costello, for bringing this issue to hopefully some sort of solution. We've had traffic issues there for quite a while. I do want to, if this goes through with this kind of an agreement, which I'm impressed with, I will also like to, on the record, thank Mr. Nardini for his efforts to invest in the city as well. And I understand this won't be his property. This is actually going to be invested in the city property. which will allow access to his property and actually make this conducive for all those who are heading not just to his Century Plaza properties, but other properties there as well. So with that, I commend the mayor and Mr. Nardini for putting effort behind this. I hope this gets done. We would love to have seen a I don't call it three lane, but a turning lane all the way through to the developments. But after discussing with the mayor, I hear that's just a little unfeasible. So I appreciate at least looking into that as well. Financially, that wasn't going to make it. So thank you to both parties. I hope this gets through, and I hope that this solves some of the issues we have at Kresge and 58. So with that, I yield back to the chair. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other discussion? Mr. Winarski?
No, just real briefly, this is still under review. There's no plans at this time, nothing.
We've got preliminary plans. I mean, we actually have a real good idea. They're just not engineered with quantities and, but we've got
Okay,
a real
nothing you
good
can
plan, but
release at
nothing,
this
I
time.
haven't spent much, any money on it with,
Okay.
but it's all preliminary plan.
Okay, I'll leave it at that then. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I have one question. Since this is just approving the agreement, once the agreement has been decided and the plans have been put in place, then you'll be coming back through finance for...
Absolutely, it'll be $130-some thousand, so I'll have to come back and get it
And
approved.
we'll see the plans at that point.
You will.
Thank you. With no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. Move to take A1648 to the floor of council. I don't believe there's emergency on that, correct?
I mean, it would be good, but I'll be honest, I don't see construction taking place till next season, so you can do what you want here.
Mr. Winarski?
If that's the entire motion, I'll second it.
First and second to take A1648 to the floor of council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Mr. Ventura?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Miller?
Second.
First and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned at 7:14.
We have one item on the agenda today, A1646. That's an ordinance approving the development agreement for R.J. Perry Construction for sanitary sewer improvements on North Quarry Road and declaring an emergency. Mayor, do you have any information for us?
I do. Mr. Parrott and his company, Mr. Parrott's here with us tonight, by the way, wishes to put a couple sewer extensions into our city at no cost to the city. This is solely engineering and construction at his company's cost to benefit, I think, 8 total lots, 4 of his own and maybe 4 others in the future. Before you, I think Friday you got a email with the attachment. The one that you received today had one change in it, section 17, and it has the fair share and reimbursement of this project. Typically when a developer builds something like this at his own expense, dedicates it to the city, anybody else that wishes to benefit from it within the future, within about 10 years, also has to pay their fair share. So attached to that was an agreement that explains the fair share reimbursement program. That actually won't get adopted until this is completely finished, all the final costs are realized, and it gets dedicated to the city. I just wanted that in this package so that you could be aware of it and that you knew that the developer in the city wishes to go into an agreement like that. There has been a few changes since this was sent to you, and each one of you had these changes in front of you when you showed up. And all the changes are in red lines. Tony, Mr. Pecora, and Mr. Carlson and I have all gone through those. It's not really any language that hurts the city by any means. It just clarifies a few things. Maybe Frank or Tony would like to explain the changes, but we're wishing to put those changes into this agreement also, and they're in red line. There's 6 or 7 of them. Tony?
Well, just briefly, as to the fair share, I initially had some objections to what was before council 2 weeks ago, in the sense that there was an arbitrary amount of money that the homeowners would have to pay if they tapped into Mr. Parrott's line. I didn't think that was necessarily fair without any explanation of how and why, and whether or not that cost was also being fairly shared by his people who were involved with this development, or his homes that he's building. So that has been clarified in the fair share agreement. Equally spreads out the cost amongst everyone who benefits from that sewer these improvements, including Mr. Parrott's people involved with his homes. So that's what I wanted to make sure. The other thing is the city's also, I believe, potentially going to we're going to be collecting the fees we're going to receive. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor.
5% administrative fee.
Yeah. So I was okay with that. I want to explain the difference between last time we discussed this and now. So,
thank you.
and Frank might do anything else.
No, that explains it, I think.
Mr. Parrott, do you want to add anything at all?
Not really.
Okay. All right, do we have any, Mr. Winger?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The element of this agreement where we're reimbursed or we're collecting money and reimbursing Mr. Parrott falls under Exhibit A. I don't see an Exhibit A in the modification.
It's not in the modification. It's still attached to the older version.
Okay.
So it still references my Exhibit A. So I just didn't, to save a tree or two, I just didn't reprint
Okay.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, as written in the original email, will be attached and included in this
Yes.
that we're passing tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and can you tell me where it mentions that? I didn't see Exhibit A.
It doesn't
mentioned.
mention that, but we quickly reprinted the newer red line versions, and so it will be attached. It says
Right.
Exhibit
But it's not
A in the same 17, doesn't it?
I didn't see it in there, that's why I'm asking real quick.
So
And if it-
section 17 might not be there in the new one?
Okay, look for it next meeting.
Just to kind of give a history so you understand what's going on. The red line version that you see represents the developer's responses to the original draft of the agreement. So we had developed the original agreement basically based upon other developers' agreements we'd had in the city. The developer then proposed the changes that you see in red line. Those were reviewed by myself and Mr. Pecora. We felt that they were suitable and not objectionable. And then the mayor kind of, and Mr. Pecora developed the addendum, the attachment, which relates to the sharing of the costs. So all of the pieces were kind of going a little this way and that way, so that that's kind of, I don't know if that explains.
I think to answer your question, the reimbursement section will be added into it'll be there.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll look for that next meeting. That's all.
Okay, good.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Carlson.
Thank you for noticing that.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, I just want to thank my colleague for catching that too, because I was searching for that, and I appreciate clarifying that before I had to. So we'll see then, from our understanding here at council, we'll see a reimbursement section, or at least an exhibit A, or however you're going to amend that into this particular developer's agreement. That'll be,
The two will be meshed together.
and will probably
You'll
go
see that
down to
soon.
an amending of this developer's agreement as offered up, and that will show the actual breakdown, and we appreciate that. So with that, I have no further questions. I appreciate
no more questions or comments, Mr. Bukovac?
I do have a question, thank you. I also noticed this is also including a couple lots on South Lake Street as well,
Yes, there's two separate projects on there.
2 separate projects. Question is has there been any kind of impact study done as far as how much that's going to impact us if other people outside of these 4 lots decide to tap in? Do we know how it's going to impact us?
There's very few. It's kind of surrounded by a lot of, there's not much more development going to happen.
Not on South Lake especially, I know, right? So what I was more thinking about North Quarry.
We're only taking those 8 lots into consideration at this point.
And what's the confidence level of the sanitary lines that are being placed in now that if other people tap into the future, that they'll be able to handle that sewage?
Oh, there's no problem. With our capacity study, there's absolutely no problems.
That's what I know. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Winarski?
I'd like to ask this sent to the floor of the council as written, please.
With the emergency.
Yeah, with the emergency.
Mrs. Wasil?
Second.
Motion and second on the floor for this to go to the floor of council as written with the emergency.
I'll just put this in the
We'll take a roll call vote.
Okay.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Winiarski?
This whole thing.
Mrs. Wasil?
We're not gonna show it.
Two W's, I'm sorry. Mr. Winiarski?
No,
So we're gonna accept
Yes.
those changes.
Yes.
And then you're
And
gonna.
we're just going to add this.
Yes.
Mr. Bukovac?
Changes
Yes.
numbers.
Chair votes yes. It passes 5-0. Mr. Bukovac?
Move to adjourn?
Mr. Miller?
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned at 7.
Mr. Perry,
Thank you.
do you have a second? Oh. Hey, before you go. We've never met. I run the baseball association.